They say the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. For 10 years, I told myself I was the luckiest woman alive. I was married to Mark, the hero of our town, the man who rescued me from my own loneliness, the perfect father. But as I stood there, clinking my glass against his in front of 200 people for our 10th anniversary toast, the doors at the back of the hall swung open. A woman stood there. She looked like a ghost, thin, pale, wearing a coat that looked like it had been dragged through the mud. The room went dead silent. Mark's hands started to shake so hard his champagne spilled onto his silk tie. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked him in the eye and said, "10 years, Mark. Is that how long it takes for a man to forget he buried his wife alive?" Everything turned white. My heart didn't just break. It stopped before I tell you how my life shattered in the 5 minutes that followed. I need to know, have any of you ever looked at someone you've shared a bed with for years and realized you didn't know them at all? Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I'm reading every single one of your stories tonight because honestly, I need to know I'm not the only one who lived a lie. Welcome to the channel. This is my story. To understand the horror of that night, you have to understand how we met. I was 24, working 2 jobs and feeling invisible. Then came Mark. He was older, successful, and carried this heavy sadness that made every woman in town want to fix him. He was a widower. Everyone knew the story. His first wife, Sarah, had died in a tragic house fire while he was away on a business trip. He'd tried to save her, the neighbors said. He'd burned his hands trying to get through the front door. He was a local hero who had lost everything. When we started dating, he was so gentle. He told me I was his second chance. He never talked much about Sarah. He said it was too painful. I respected that. I thought I was being supportive. I didn't realize I was being compliant. We got married within a year. He bought us a house on the outskirts of town, privacy, he called it. He was a provider, a protector. But looking back now, he was a gatekeeper. The first crack appeared about 3 years in. Mark had a home office that was strictly off limits. Client confidentiality, he'd say with that charming smile. One afternoon, while he was checking on a property 3 towns over, I found a key tucked inside a hollowed out book on our shelf. My curiosity got the better of me. I opened the bottom drawer of his desk. I expected tax papers or old photos. Instead, I found a burner phone and a stack of bank statements for an account I didn't know existed. Every month for 3 years, $5,000 had been transferred to something called the Willow Creek Sanctuary. When Mark came home, I showed him the key. I'll never forget the way his face changed. The hero vanished. His eyes went cold, like a shutter closing. "Don't ever go in my desk again, Elena," he said. His voice was a whisper, but it felt like a slap. "That money is for a charity Sarah supported. It's a legacy. Do you really want to be the woman who begrudges a dead wife her charity work?" He made me feel small. He made me feel jealous. So I apologized. I tucked my intuition away and locked it in a drawer of my own heart. I stayed for 7 more years, until that woman walked into our party and called him a murderer. The silence in the ballroom was so heavy I could hear the ice melting in the glasses. Mark's face didn't just go pale. It turned a sickly shade of gray. He looked like he was seeing a ghost because, in his mind, he was Sarah. He whispered. The name felt like a curse in the air. The woman took a step forward, her heavy boots tracking mud onto the white marble floor. She looked at the expensive decorations, the 5-tier cake, and finally she looked at me. Her eyes weren't filled with rage. They were filled with a deep, hollow pity. "Is this the new one, Mark?" she asked. Her voice was raspy, like she hadn't used it in years. Does she know about the house in the woods? Does she know why you keep a burner phone in your desk? The guests began to whisper. I felt every eye in the room burning into the back of my neck. I looked at Mark, waiting for him to step up, to be the hero, to tell me this was some sick joke, but he just stood there, frozen. I finally found my voice. Mark, who is this woman? I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't answer me. He didn't even look at me. He was staring at Sarah like she was a monster he thought he'd slain. Suddenly, Mark snapped. He grabbed Sarah by the arm, his grip so tight his knuckles turned white. You're not supposed to be here, he hissed. I paid them to keep you safe. I paid them to keep you quiet. Sarah laughed, a jagged, broken sound. The facility burned down, Mark, just like our house. Only this time, I was the one who walked out of the fire. Before anyone could react, she shoved a crumpled piece of paper into my hand and bolted for the exit. Mark tried to follow her, but our guests, prominent city officials and neighbors were already surrounding him, demanding answers. I didn't stay to hear his lies. I ran to the ladies' room and locked the door, my breath coming in short, jagged gasps. I looked at the paper Sarah had given me. It wasn't a note. It was a map to a location in the deep woods of the neighboring county, with a single word written in the margin. Watch, guys. I'm shaking just narrating this part. I stayed in that bathroom for an hour, listening to the sirens outside as the party fell apart. I knew if I stayed, Mark would find a way to explain it away. He always did. He was a master of the truth-adjacent story. I have to ask you, if you found a map left by a woman claiming to be your husband's dead wife, would you go to that location, or would you run as far away as possible? Type go or run in the comments. I need to know if I was crazy for what I did next. Because that night, while Mark was at the police station giving a statement, I didn't go home. I got in my car, followed that map, and drove 3 hours into the dark. The GPS lost signal about 20 miles into the national forest. The paved road turned into gravel, then into a dirt track that felt like it was leading me into the mouth of the earth. My headlights were the only thing cutting through the oppressive, heavy fog. Every shadow looked like a person standing by the road. Every snap of a twig made me want to turn the car around and drive until I hit the ocean, but I couldn't. The woman's eyes, Sarah's eyes, were burned into my brain. They weren't the eyes of a crazy stalker. They were the eyes of a woman who had been erased. Finally, the dirt road ended at a rusted iron gate. There was no sign, only a small, weathered plaque that read, Willow Creek Private Residence. Behind the gates sat a crumbling Victorian-style house that looked more like a prison than a home. One single light was flickering in a top-floor window. I turned off my engine. The silence was absolute. I gripped the flashlight in my shaking hand and realized, if something happened to me out here, no one in the world knew where I was. Mark had made sure of that. The front door wasn't locked. It creaked open with a sound that felt like a scream. The air inside smelled of bleach and old, damp paper. It didn't look like a sanctuary. It looked like a medical facility that time had forgotten. I walked down the long hallway, my flashlight beam dancing over peeling wallpaper and discarded wheelchairs. I found an office at the back. On the desk was a ledger, the same kind of ledger I'd seen a glimpse of in Mark's locked drawer years ago. I opened it. My heart plummeted. There were lists of patients, but only one name was repeated on every page for 10 years. Sarah Bennett. Next to her name were notes in a cold, clinical hand. Patient remains sedated. No outside. Contact permitted. Monthly payments received from him. Bennett. Then I saw the most recent entry, Dated just 2 days ago. Patient escaped during fire. Relocation required immediately. Notify him at once. Mark hadn't been paying for her care. He had been paying for her disappearance. He had kept her drugged and hidden for a decade while he played the grieving widower and married me. I heard a floorboard creak behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. I expected to see Sarah or maybe a ghost. Instead, I saw a reflection in a dusty mirror. But it wasn't just my reflection. In the darkness of the doorway behind me, a tall, familiar silhouette was standing there. I told you never to go in my desk, Elena, the voice said. It was Mark. He wasn't at the police station. He wasn't the hero anymore. He was standing there in his ruined tuxedo, his hair disheveled, and his eyes. His eyes were completely empty. You just couldn't let it be, could you? He whispered, taking a step into the room. We had a perfect life. I gave you everything. And now you've gone and ruined it for both of us. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy set of keys, the same keys that matched the locks on the doors in this house. Mark took another step forward, the floorboards groaning under his weight. He wasn't shouting. He was calm, which was 1,000 times more terrifying. Elena, think about the kids, he said, his voice smooth as silk. Think about our reputation. If this gets out, we lose everything. The house, the business, the future. I did this for us. You did this for you. I screamed, backing away until I hit the cold glass of the window. You kept a human being in a cage for a decade. He sighed, shaking his head like I was a child who didn't understand a simple math problem. Sarah was unstable. I was protecting her, and I was protecting the world from her. As he reached for my arm, I saw a flash of movement in the hallway behind him. A shadow, thin and silent. It was Sarah. She wasn't running away this time. She was holding a heavy glass medical jar she'd found in the hall. Before Mark could grab me, she swung. The sound of the glass shattering against the back of Marcus' head was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. He crumpled to the floor, stunned but not unconscious. Sarah didn't look at him. She looked at me and pointed toward the back stairs. The records. She rasped, "Take the ledgers." I grabbed the bank statements and the patient files, and we ran. We didn't head for my car. We knew he'd expect that. We ran straight into the woods, following a trail Sarah had memorized during her brief moments of outdoor exercise. Behind us, we could hear Mark screaming my name. He sounded like a wounded animal. But we didn't stop until we saw the blue and red lights flashing in the distance. I had called the police the moment I arrived at the gate, leaving the line open. They had tracked my GPS. The next 48 hours were a blur of flashbulbs, sterile police, interview rooms, and the smell of cheap coffee. The hero of Willow Creek was all over the news, but the headline had changed. Now he was the monster of the woods. When the police searched the facility, they found more than just Sarah's records. They found evidence of insurance fraud reaching back 20 years. Mark had burned down their first house not just to kill Sarah, but to collect a $3 million payout that built his current empire. He had kept her alive in that facility because he needed her signature on certain documents every few years to keep the money flowing. He didn't love her. He didn't love me. He loved the lifestyle we provided him. Seeing him in that orange jumpsuit during the arraignment was the first time I felt like I could breathe in 10 years. He looked small. He looked like the coward he always was. People ask me all the time, "How did you not know?" Or "How could you stay?" And to them, I say, when someone spends every day building a beautiful cage for you, you start to mistake the gold bars for sunshine. Sarah and I don't talk every day. She's healing in a real facility now, one that focuses on recovery, not imprisonment. But every month I visit her. We don't talk about Mark. We talk about the future. We talk about the lives we're going to live now that we're finally dead to the world he built for us. I lost my home. I lost my perfect marriage. But for the first time in my life, I own my soul. Thank you for sitting with me through this long, dark journey. If this story touched you, or if you've ever had to find the courage to leave a lie behind, please hit that like button. It helps our voices reach people who might still be trapped in their own perfect lives. And remember, the truth doesn't care if you're ready for it. It's coming anyway. I'm Elena, and this has been my untold story. I'll see you in the next one.